Lesson 8, I will investigate decimal numbers on place value chart expressed in different units. So today we're going to talk about how you can express decimal numbers in different units. For example, if I had 5 tenths, we're going to talk about how many hundredths that is. Or if I had 56 hundredths, we're going to talk about how many tenths that is. So before we get started today, you're going to need to find your practice sheet. Okay, it's going to look like this. It's actually called a template. I'm going to show you what this looks like in full view, okay? So if I go down here and make this smaller. So this is the paper that you're looking for, the Lesson 8 template. We're going to be doing something with all of these before we get started with our problem set today. So I want you to go ahead and find this. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at these first 3 holes that you see right here. You have 3 area models, and you can see each of them represents a hole, and you can see they've been divided into how many parts? Well, let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. These have each been divided into 10 parts. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to shade 2 ones, 4 tenths. So let me write that up here for you. 2 ones, 4 tenths. Okay, so I want you to pause the video and I want you to try to shade 2 ones and 4 tenths. Okay, so hopefully you pause the video and you shaded 2 ones and 4 tenths. So you can see here that I shaded 2 whole ones, and then over here I came over here and I shaded 1, 2, 3, 4 tenths. What if you saw something that looked like this? 2 ones and 4 tenths is equal to blank tenths. How would we figure out how many tenths there were in 2 ones and 4 tenths? Well, how many tenths do you see here? Well, this would be 10. So we have 10 tenths here, and 10 tenths here, and 4 tenths here. So altogether we would have 10, 20, 4 tenths. Now, how would you write that as a decimal? Well, if you were going to write 2 and 4 tenths, you would write it like this, 2 and 4 tenths. So 2 ones and 4 tenths is the same thing as 24 tenths, which is the same thing as 2 and 4 tenths. Okay, let's try one more. All right, this time we're going to shade 2 ones and 40 hundredths. Okay, so I want you to pause the video, and I want you to take your pencil and lightly shade 2 ones and 40 hundredths, and then come back. Okay, so hopefully you paused the video and you tried to shade 2 ones and 40 hundredths. I bet you didn't have any trouble with this 2 ones. But when it got to 40 hundredths, did you get a little confused or did you figure it out? Well, to make 40 hundredths, you're going to have to decompose these tenths into hundredths, right? So we're going to have to draw some horizontal lines. So we're going to have to divide this into 10 parts so that we have, instead of 10, we have 100. So if you didn't do that, I want you to go ahead and do that with me now. So let's go ahead and decompose this. So now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So let's count and see if we have 10 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, now I'm ready to do 40 hundredths. So let's change back over here to my highlighter. All right, so I can do 10, 20, 30, 40. And maybe you figured this out already, and if you did, good for you. All right, so we've got 2 ones and 40 hundredths. Now, what if you saw this? 2 ones and 40 hundredths is equal to blank hundredths. How many hundredths do you see? Well, how many hundredths are in one whole? Well, there would be 100, right? So this would be 100 hundredths. This would be 100 hundredths. And then here we have 40. So this would be 100, 200 is equal to 240 hundredths. How would we write that as a decimal? 2 and 40 hundredths. But that's also equal to 2 ones, and 4 tenths. Now, how can that be equal? How can 40 hundredths be equal to 4 tenths? Well, take a look. What do you notice? They're the same, right? The only difference is we decompose these tenths into 10 parts and made them hundredths, but they are equivalent, or they are equal. All right, so the last thing we're going to do on this template today is we're going to be taking a look at this place value chart. And we're going to put in this place value chart 4 ones and 3 tenths. So let's go ahead and draw a place value disc. So let's go ahead and do 4 ones, 1, 1, 1, 1. And then we have 3 tenths. 1, 2, 3. And these are tenths, 0.1, 0.1. So what if I said to you, okay, I've got 4 ones and I've got 4 tenths. So this would be 4.4. So what if I said, I've got 4 ones and 4 tenths. I want to know how many tenths that is. Well, we could decompose these ones, right? What would happen if I moved all 4 of these here? What happens when you move a 1 to the tenths place? How many tenths are in one whole? Well, that would be 10, right? So let's not make big ones like this. Let's just draw 10 dots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And let me make those just a little bit thicker so that you can see them. Okay, so that's for this one. And then for this one, we can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then for this one, we can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then for this one, we can bring it over here, and that's the same as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So now, how many tenths do I have in all? Remember, I've decomposed these, so I'm not counting these ones anymore. I have 10, 20, 30, 40, 41, 42, 43. Oh, I see my mistake. This should have been a 3 all along, shouldn't it? So 4 and 3 tenths is equal to 43 tenths. Well, what if I said, well, how many hundredths is that? Uh-oh. If we, for every one of these tenths, what happens when you move them here? Every time you move them, you would have 10 for every single one of these. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't want to draw that. So how can we figure this out without drawing all of those? Could we count by tens? We could. That would take a long time too, right? What if we took these 10 and we know that there's 10 here, and this would be 10 for every single one? How many would that be? 10 tens would be 100. So what if we just did this and we said, okay, that would be 100. This would be 100. This would be 100. This would be 100. And this up here would be how many? 10, 20, 30. So we would have 100, 200, 300, 400, 30. So this would be equal to 430 hundredths. And I'm going to abbreviate that. So 4 and 3 tenths is equal to 43 tenths and is equal to 430 hundredths. Are you seeing a pattern there? I am. All right, so let's get started on our problem set today and see if we don't see some other patterns. So we're going to use the area model to represent 250 hundredths, and we're going to complete the number sentence. The first thing I notice when I'm trying to shade 250 hundredths is that I don't have hundredths, I have tenths. Can you remember from what we did in our template how we can take these hundredths or take these tenths and make them hundredths? We could decompose them. But I think we've decomposed these enough times that we can probably say that this is 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, and 100. So even though these are tenths, we know that each 10 has 10 tenths, or 10 hundredths, excuse me. So if each of these tenths has 10 hundredths, then this is equal to 100 hundredths. So if this is 100, then what would this be? This would be 200, right? Now, can you figure out while we're shading this what we're going to be shading to show 50? Well, if I'm going to show 50, I'm just going to shade 5, right? 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. So now I have 250 hundredths. Even though these are tenths, I know they have the same value as those hundredths. All right, so now let's come back and fill this out. So 250 hundredths has a value of what in tenths? Well, this is 10 tenths, right? This is 20 tenths, and this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 250 hundredths is the same thing as 25 tenths. Now, let's talk about how many ones we have. So let me get my pen here. All right, so let's talk about how many ones. Here's a 1, right? We have 1, 2 ones. And then how many tenths? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 2 ones and 5 tenths is equal to 2 and 5 tenths. It says in the space below, explain how you determined your answer to A. So how did we determine our answer? Let's think about that for a minute. What did we do? Okay, I knew that 1/10 is equal to 10 hundredths. So I shaded 25 tenths to make 250 hundredths. Okay, so we knew that this was equal to 10, so we shaded 10 tenths to make 100 hundredths, or 100 hundredths. All right, draw a number disc to represent the following decompositions. All right, so we're going to show 2 ones. All right, so we've got 2 ones here. 1, 1. And we want to know how many tenths that would be. So what would happen if we move these to the tenths? For this one, how many tenths would that be? That would be 10, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And for this one, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So how many tenths are equal to 2 ones? 10, 20. All right, so let's try 2 tenths this time. All right, so this time I'm just going to draw dots to represent the tenths. They're in the tenths place, so they represent tenths. Okay, so I've got 2 tenths. Now, if I want to move these to show how many hundredths that would be, if I move them to the hundredths place, this tenth would be equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hundredths. This 10 would be equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hundredths. So I've got 10, 20. So what do you notice is happening when we move to the right on the place value chart? What are we adding every time? We're adding a 0. All right, now let's try 1/10 and 3/10. And we want to know how many tenths that's equal to. So if we take this 1 and we decompose it into tenths, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now I have 10, 11, 12, 13 tenths. All right, so let's do 2 tenths and 3 hundredths. 1, 2 tenths, and 1, 2, 3 hundredths. I want you to try to figure out how many hundredths we would have altogether. So pause the video and decompose this and then see if you can figure it out. Okay, so hopefully you paused the video and you thought to yourself, well, if I move this tenth to the hundredths, that's going to be equal to 10. And if I move this tenth to the hundredths, that's going to be equal to 10. So that will be 10, 20, 23 hundredths. So are you starting to see a pattern here? When we put the 1 with the tenths, this is equal to 10 tenths, and 10 and 3 make 13. 2 tenths is equal to 20 hundredths, so 23 hundredths. All right, let's see if we can do this without the model. So 1 is equal to how many tenths? 1 whole is equal to 10 tenths. 2 wholes is equal to 20 tenths. Well, 1 whole and 7 tenths is equal to 17 tenths. Are you seeing the pattern? 2 wholes and 9 tenths is equal to 29 tenths. See if you can't do E and F all by yourself. Pause the video and then come back. Okay, so hopefully you figured out that this would be 107 tenths and this would be 209 tenths. Because for each of these, it would be 200 and then you have your 9 tenths already there. All right, now we're going to decompose from the ones to the hundredths. So 1 whole is equal to 100 hundredths. 2 wholes is equal to 200 hundredths. So 1 whole and 7 tenths is equal to 170 hundredths. 2 and 9 tenths is equal to 290 hundredths. Okay, so let's think about that for a minute. I've got 2 and 9 tenths. That's equal to 29 tenths, which is equal to 290 hundredths. All I did was multiply the numerator and the denominator times 10. Okay? See if you can do E and F by yourself. If you get stuck, press play and I will help you. Okay, so hopefully you thought to yourself, okay, I've got 10 and 7 tenths. That's equal to 107 tenths, which is equal to 1,070 hundredths. So that would make this 1,070. If this is 20 and 9 tenths, that's equal to 209 tenths, which is equal to 2,090 hundredths. See if you can find the pattern in that. Okay? All right. Now, we're going to complete the chart. The first one has been done for you. I'm going to walk you through 1 or 2, and I'm going to let you do the rest by yourself. All right, so we're going to write this as a mixed number. So we're going to write it just like we read it. 4 and 2 tenths. 4 and 2 tenths. That's the same thing as 42 tenths or 42 tenths, which is equal to 420 hundredths, which is the same thing as 420 hundredths. Okay, let's do one more together. So I've got 8 and 4 tenths. That's the same thing as 84 tenths, which can be written 84 over 10. That's the same thing as 840 hundredths, which can be written 840 over 100. Now, I want you to pause the video, and I want you to finish this chart by yourself. There's 2 here. I want to see if you can do them all by yourself. Okay, so let's take a look at 10 and 2 tenths. So 10 and 2 tenths as a mixed number would be written 10 and 2 tenths. That's the same thing as 102 tenths and 1,020 hundredths. So let's look at the last one. 75 and 5 tenths is the same thing as 755 tenths and 7,550 hundredths. Okay, so I hope that today, that as you were going from ones to tenths to hundredths, you were noticing a pattern. We started out 4 and 2 tenths, and that went to 42, and that went to 420. Look at what's happening to your numbers. 8 and 4 tenths, 84, 840. 10.2, 102, 1,020. There's a definite pattern here if you're looking really closely. When this system is based on tens, You can notice every time you go from the tenths to the hundredths, it's getting 10 times bigger.